boys and girls, this is your boy Fertlance and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like my content and you love what I do, then smack that like button and subscribe, and with that we'll get into today's video. So today I thought I'd shed some light on this whole Horizon Forbidden West PS4 to PS5 upgrade issue. I know a lot of YouTubers and media people have made a huge issue out of this thing. In my opinion, like, who actually gives a fuck? If you get a PS4, then you'll buy the PS4 version. If you get a PS5, then you'll get a PS5 version. I really don't see a huge deal in this. Now, I have to use a bit of a caveat in this. I know that the whole issue is based around the fact that if you bought the PS4 version, and down the road that if you bought a PS5 and you can't upgrade the game for free, but instead you have to pay full price. I mean, that was initially what was going on when the pricing for the game came out, and yes, I can understand that point. That is a bit shitty on Sony's behalf, and I don't disagree with it, but in all honesty, what this does is that it highlights the two things for me that I have actually stated in the past as well. One is that cross-gen games are not to be meddled with. I mean, you made a new console, you went through the hard times of, putting together this amazing machine, so stick with making games for this particular console. I mean, don't try and juggle between the old console and the new console. I know you want to continue on the generation for, the people who still have a PS4, but gotta focus on the new stuff, right? People are rushing in to try and get their hands on these PS5s, so that's the important part to keep your mind at and just your focus on, right? Trying to have your one foot in one boat and another foot in another boat is not really going to help you float in this, right? You have a higher chance of drowning in the middle simply because you're trying to advance the technology towards the future, but at the same time you're unable to let go of the past. You can't do that, right? In my honest opinion, I mean, if nothing else, higher frame rate and maybe even a little bit of a digitally enhanced picture is what you would have gotten, even if you would have just plugged your PS4 Blu-ray disc in the PS5, right? I mean, the console does a good job itself of digitally enhancing the picture, right? Frame rates are more stable on the PS5, so even if you only had the PS4 version of the game, you're still getting a better quality, at least in my opinion. Look, I don't want to be the one who is trying to beat the dead horse in this. I know this topic's in the past because both Sony and Guerrilla Games came forward. They reverted their original plan, is now offering the upgrade for free, which interestingly, if I may say, if my memory serves correct, this was something that was supposed to be part of the original plan from last year anyway. So maybe it was just a message that was being lost in transition. Maybe Sony is a greedy as fuck company and just trying to gouge people for their money, or maybe it was just their foresight. They just didn't catch this and say, oh, you know what, maybe we should put this out. But it does kind of seem a bit suspicious that they kind of waited until all the outrage online was pouring in for this, so which kind of made them bring this topic to head, that say, okay, you know what, yeah, maybe we need to make a statement and say that all the PS4 owners of the game would get a free upgrade to the PS5. Look, in some cases they're charging $10, cases like Ghost of Tsushima and stuff like that. In other cases they're not, so it is a bit topsy-turvy, and I do agree that something has to be done to have a much more aligned plan for PS4 players to transition to PS5. But at the same time, I really don't think that a lot of people would care that much. I personally don't think this entire issue was that big of a deal to get your panties in a twist, right? I mean, like I said, if you have one console, if you have the PS4, you're gonna get your disc for that console. If you have a PS5, you're gonna get your disc for that console. By the time you get a PS5 for yourself, if you don't have one right now, the chances are by the time you get a console, the game's already gonna be probably lowered in price or on sale or something like that, right? So Yet again, not trying to defend Sony here, but I just find it a bit absurd that everyone was, blowing this thing out of proportion. Now, the second topic that I wanted to talk to you all about is a big issue, and I do take a bit of an offense with it because just the way it was presented, right? And that was the Austin Evans video about the new PS5 model and how it's worse. It's so bad. No, it is not. So if you haven't watched this video, he got his hands on a new PS5 model from Japan, and he basically did a breakdown of the new PS5 model versus the old one or the original, and he basically showed in that breakdown that the heatsink is smaller and it blows. Keep in mind this word, blows hotter air outside of out of the cooling vents, so it is objectively worse in his opinion. Right? Now that is blatantly wrong. If anyone sees the breakdown of the new PS5 model, you can clearly see two things. One, that the heatsink is smaller, and second, the fan is a little larger with more fins. So in effect, in my opinion, Sony has removed the excess heatsink and compensated with a better fan. Now, in no way, shape, or form, having few degrees higher heat level being blown from the exhaust of the console is in any way the correct way to measure the heat that is being produced at the die level or at the level of the system chip. I mean, unless someone measures the heat of the internal components and then asks Sony about acceptable thresholds, there is no reason for anyone to conclude that the new model is simply worse. That is just as easily like the dumbest thing that I've ever heard, right? It could just as easily mean that the PS5 is better at venting hot exhaust. You'd imagine that engineers at Sony, would have tested the new model out and, haven't just pushed out an untested product that isn't performing in acceptable thresholds of heat and is just being shoved out the door, right? I mean, we've seen what have happened with consoles in the past where heating issues have not been addressed appropriately. Xbox 360 with the red ring of death, right? PS4 and the PS4 Pro with the loud fans. So there has been like mishaps in the past, but this is just one of those times that I don't think Sony would just rush out just because there's a component shortage or they're just trying to get a new model out. Look, every company at some point tries to cut down the cost of its components and making a console. And Sony does not shy away from basically recreating the whole console. I mean, just look at the PS3 generation. The console had 3 iterations over its lifetime, right? The PS3, the original OG with the Spider-Man symbol on it, then there was a PS Slim, and then there was an Ultra Slim model, right? PS4 had 2 iterations, and the third one you can say the Pro with the higher fidelity and better components in it. So, I mean, every company does it. I just don't understand why is it that this is being blown out of proportion. And part of it, I have to say, goes back to Austin Evans and the video he made, right? I mean, you're not an expert, you're not an engineer, you're not someone who puts a console together. So why would you go ahead and make some dumb claims like this yet again because you don't know what the temperatures are of the internal components of the system itself? And you're basing your entire opinion piece on the fact that the exhaust vents are blowing out air that is basically a couple of degrees hotter. Right? Now, I don't agree with the backlash that he's getting. Some of it, look, I understand. It's the internet, right? You're not gonna make a video on YouTube and have 5 million followers and say something that's controversial. Not to say at the same time that your video, Austin, was not a clickbait. It was completely a clickbait. You should have used the word, in my opinion, the new model of the PS5 could do better, but is not, or something along those lines, right? Be a little bit more open. You don't have to be clickbaity. You got 5 million followers, dude. You're gonna get views anyway, right? And with 2 million or over 2 million views on your current video, the PS5, the original one that you made, comparing the two models of the consoles, I really don't think you're at a loss. But look, I 100% disagree with the doxing and the threats and all of that. No, not at all, right? If you want to have a debate, a discourse as to why you think that Austin is wrong, like why I'm doing, make a video about it, have a discussion. If you know him, if you're a friend, maybe go to his podcast or invite him to your podcast or something. But the threats to life or going after him, not at all. 100% against it. Do not condone that under any circumstance whatsoever. But he does deserve some valid criticisms in this regard. Anyway, moving on, I just want to touch on one last thing before we end the video, guys. Last but not least, Sony has a huge showcase coming this Thursday, and you can bet your little tidy whiteys that I will give my thoughts and opinions on that show once it's done. Now, I don't normally like making predictions because, gotta be honest, I'm pretty bad at them and I'm usually wrong, but I am expecting God of War to be there, maybe, hopefully a teaser for Spider-Man 2, and if there is one game that would be out of this world for me, and I'm hoping, like, hey, everyone's giving their predictions, so why not me, right? It would be Resistance. Man, I remember playing that game back on my PS3, on my cousin's PS3, more accurately, and I think it was Resistance 3 Fall of Man, and it was my first FPS shooter on a console, and I loved every second of it, right? So, but nonetheless, I don't want to hype the event too much. I will be watching it. I will make a video about it as well. So if you guys are excited about it, leave your comments, leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Let me know what you all think. Tell me, what games are you guys expecting to be there or hoping to be there, or if you have any thoughts and opinions about any of the topics that I discussed above, and I will holler at y'all later. Take care, guys. Bye.